It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's sourdough. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. I am Tom Papa, your host for the show, for your life. I hope you're doing well. It feels like things are getting better, doesn't it? It feels like we are slowly crawling out of the quagmire. I can't believe we're at 1 year. We're at 1 year since we started going inside, closing our windows, and staying away from everybody and everything. Do you remember how crazy it was in the very beginning? It was crazy. You forget how we just got used to it, but in the beginning it was like, can I go to the food store? Can I do anything? That was my big tell. That was my monitor, was going to get supplies, going to the supermarket, because I like to go almost every day and get the things that I'm going to make. And when it went from that toilet paper craze, I'm sure you remember that, and then everything was gone, and then there were no bagel bites. That was a big thing for our family. There were no frozen bagel bites left. Everybody was panicking. And then, of course, you had to be in lines. And, well, let's not go through the whole thing. We all know it. We've all lived it. But it feels like it's getting better. I haven't stood in line for a supermarket in a long time. I go and I get my supplies. Easy peasy. Dreamy, dreamy. And I got my first dose of the vaccine, which is so exciting. My wife is a teacher, and she got the vaccine. She was all signed up, and then they had to open up an extra little vial for this older woman who was there and very angry that she was at the wrong CVS, and they decided, let's open it up. But once they opened it up, at the end of the day, they had to give it away to a couple other people, and guess who was there? Yes, sore arm, but feeling kind of invincible at the same time. Oh, so exciting. We have a great show for you today. We've got the great Ronny Chieng, very funny comedian. I love him. He's from The Daily Show. He's got this amazing special on Netflix, stand-up special. He's so good. And we're going to sit down and break bread and talk about, he comes from Malaysia, and he kind of bounced back and forth. And we're going to talk about all things Asian food and comedy, and just have a great time. He's very funny, very thoughtful, and we got to share a great cigar when we first met at the Soho Cigar Bar in New York City, and that was our first introduction, and we sat there like gentlemen, and we were very excited, and I'm very excited for his success. He's really kicking butt right now, and as you know from listening to this podcast early on, I don't know my way around the Asian food. I'm getting a little better. I've made some strides, but it's just in my mind of what I'm supposed to make, some tofu and broccoli, and I don't know. Ronnie's great. He'll educate me. Then we are going to grab a quick bite with Matteo Lane. Matteo Lane coming back to the program because once again, I got some guanciale from the deli here in Los Angeles, and guanciale, as you know, is pork. It's from the cheek, and it is the primary ingredient in Spaghetti Carbonara, which is a delicious dish. Which I'm making too much of it. It's kind of like cacio e pepe, which is cheese and pepper, and it's not that complicated of a dish, but you can make it complicated. It's one of those things, if you can do it well, one of those simple little things, you will be so happy because it's going to be so great. And if you overthink it and you don't have experience with it, you can mess it up. Well, yesterday, I messed it up. It's a very simple dish. You take some egg yolks and some pecorino cheese. You mix that together in a bowl, right? You're making this creamy kind of sauce that is going to be added to the spaghetti. And the problem is temperature. So you make the guanciale. It's like frying up bacon. Put it on the side. And then I'm using the pan. And you take a little pasta water, you take your pasta al dente, you put it into the pan, you mix it up, and then you throw in your cheese mixture. And this is where I always end up in trouble. I'm trying to, with my Italian flair, throw it in there, mix it up, get it nice and creamy, and you're basically making this kind of mac and cheese with this egg yolk and pecorino cheese mixture. And you're mixing it together, but if it's a little hot, excuse the alarm outside. If it's a little hot, the eggs cook too quickly, and you don't want to be eating raw eggs, but you also don't want them cooked like scrambled eggs. That's not. If you go to a nice Italian restaurant, you ask for spaghetti carbonara, it's going to come out. It's going to be just this creamy thing with this guanciale bacon mixed in, a lot of crushed pepper, some salt. It's this nice balance. It does not look like you've got some fried eggs mushed up in the in the pasta, which is what I did again yesterday. So we're going to get a quick bite. We're going to call my buddy Matteo Lane. He is in New York, and I sent him pictures of it last night, and I decided, you know what? Let's make the struggle public. There's no shame in failure, and you guys can learn also. And I also truly highly recommend you take one of these dishes, cacio e pepe or spaghetti carbonara, and those are, I practice those, figure those out, because they are cheesy, fun home runs. Everyone in your life will love you if you can nail one of these dishes. If you nail both, then forget it. You will be hero for all times. And then a quick little side note before we get going with Ronnie. So I make this pasta. It's not great, but it was good, and it was just all great ingredients. And then I had a little broccoli on the side, very nice. I woke up today and did not feel that great. And, you just feel like a little sluggish or whatever. I'm like, what is it? What? Why? Why? I didn't get drunk. Why? And I hate to say it, but I had some Girl Scout cookies last night. I had Girl Scout cookies that I always order a bunch from my friend whose daughter sells them. And, they're not that expensive. You grab a whole bunch and make her happy, and all for it. All for supporting the Girl Scouts. They're not good cookies. They taste okay. The Thin Mints are amazing. The Samoas are pretty good. The Tagalongs, meh. But you look at the ingredients. This is why I felt sick. Now, look, if we are going to support you, Girl Scouts, and we really want to, it's a great tradition. We love it. But if McDonald's can change from their meat practices and their trashy, over-processed, if McDonald's can do it, the Girl Scouts can. Make us a better cookie. Same stuff, same ingredients. It's going to be better. They don't taste like you're enjoying something wholesome, and that's what the Girl Scouts are, wholesome. They're chemically, and of course, if you have my brain, you're not eating one, you're eating all of them before you even realize that they're bad. And you eat a whole bunch of them, which may be part of the problem, yes, but if I eat a bunch of like homemade chocolate chip cookies, I'll feel a little sugar lag the next day, but I'm not going to feel like garbage. And today I felt like garbage, and it's because there's all these chemicals and all this crap in these cookies. So Girl Scouts, this is a plea from someone who got their daughters to at least be a brownie for a little while before they quit. Step up your game. Give us something nice. Give us something good. We're done with all the processed garbage. This is not a way to live a good life. And we want the Girl Scouts to be a good part of life. And look, I could buy them and then just give them away to the neighbors and spread them around. But I got to say, we get them. They sit in the cabinet. I've got kids. I've got people visiting. they're not snatched up. They're not snatched up. And the good sign, as you know, of anything well made and delicious, they don't stick around very long. So, Girl Scouts, please, please, I'll make you some carbonara and you fix your cookies. All right, let's start the show. Let's break bread and welcome Ronny Chieng to the program. He's so damn funny. We have a great conversation, and then we will call New York City and grab a quick bite and some lessons from the great Matteo Lane. You guys are the best. Oh, this program is brought to you by me. I would like you to go to tompapa.com or rushtix.com. I am doing a live streaming show on March 27th. I will be doing stand-up comedy streaming to your home on March 27th, 9 p.m. East, 6 p.m. West. It's going to be a great show. I really feel like it's the kickoff to getting back into stand-up routine. This is going to be a great all-new material, lots of fun. Then we're going to hang afterwards. We're going to mix martinis. We're going to hang out. We're going to open up the cameras, and we'll be able to talk and hang. Martini is my drink of choice. You could bring whatever you would like. And we're going to have a great time. It's going to be a great show. March 27th. Stand up for about an hour, and then we're going to hang out at the hang afterwards. And this feels to me like the beginning, because then April I'm going to Omaha, Nebraska, and then Portland, and there's certain little things starting up, and I feel like this is kind of the kickoff. And Frank will be there. Frank the Pug will be my opening act. So go to tompapa.com and rushtix.com. And again, thank you for supporting this podcast and liking it and subscribing. You guys are the best, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to get back into the studio, too. I think next week I might bring back Kira Sultanovich and go back to our set, because things are a little safer here. We'll do a rapid test, and we can sit and really break bread again, which was our initial intent. A year, guys. A year. All right, you're the best. Enjoy the program. Enjoy Ronny. Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is great. You're in Hawaii, I hear.
Yeah. In Hawaii, best place in America right now.
God, it's so great.
You've
had a pretty great global pandemic.
I have, just by sheer luck, managed to be out of mainland America when every time things get peak crazy, I just happen to be out of America. So yes, I've had a very lucky run. I feel like I've been playing Monopoly and you keep rolling past other people's properties. I feel like I've had that roll like 5 times in a row now, where I haven't landed on anyone's hotel.
It's amazing. Yeah, because in the beginning you were in Australia, right?
Yeah, I happened to be in Australia for a 2-week job that turned into literally 5 months. So, and that was peak pandemic, March 2020. So when I got down to Australia a few days after I landed, the whole world shut down.
Amazing. and at first were you like, oh no, I'm stuck in a hotel, I'm in exile, or were you like, this might work out good for me?
I had a feeling it worked out good because Australia is pretty good with healthcare, and they're an island, so it's kind of easy to close the borders. They also are, Australians, I think, at their core, actually very sensible people. The healthcare system makes sense. So I was quite confident. But if you can remember, in March 2020, I don't know how you felt, but there was like a 2-week or at least 1 week in March 2020 when, like, we didn't know what could happen. We didn't know if there was a future, because you didn't know for that 1 week. You didn't know whether this was like something where you leave your house and you could die just breathing the air. You know, there was like that peak uncertainty in March, right? So so that 1 week in March was very much like, oh, what is happening? Are we gonna be okay? And then after a week, it became like, oh, okay, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
It'll be bad, but it'll be okay.
It's raining here in LA today, and it was raining in the beginning during those scary weeks. We had, just by coincidence, this rainy, dark period. So it was rainy and dark, which is so unlike LA, and we were stuck inside, not knowing if we were safe or not. And I was thinking about that this morning. It was like, man, people forget, like, the human brain is pretty brilliant at that. Like, you don't hang on to panic very long. Like, but we were like nervously playing puzzles with our kids, like, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be all right.
And is that where your special title came from?
You're doing great was it was actually before the pandemic, but it is that
Oh, you already
attitude.
decided that, but you
Yeah,
decided that
yeah,
before the pandemic. Okay.
yeah, yeah. It was,
Because just reading your Netflix special title was like very calming.
I know.
Especially the time when it came out, it was like, yeah, you're doing great. It's
Yeah.
fine. I was just like, oh yeah, that's it. I
I
didn't know
know.
whether you purposely, whether that was highly intentional. Obviously it's intentional, but like with regards
Yeah.
to the pandemic,
No, and it
Yeah.
took on a new meaning with the pandemic. And my
Right.
book is You're Doing Great and Other Reasons to Stay Alive. And that that really changed everything. And
Yeah.
and people still to this day send me messages every day like, it was almost like it was self-help more than it
Yeah.
was comedy. They were like,
Yeah.
thank you for being my therapist.
Yeah, but don't you think that that's like the best comedy books are that kind of thing where it's not just a joke book, right? Because
Yeah.
that's like another genre. Like if a comic writes a book, there should be an element of self-help in there, right? Otherwise
Yeah,
it's like
that's the stuff I like. Like,
mm,
I always like a little hope thrown in. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
I always loved George Carlin, and then there was this one special where he didn't give you any hope at the end. It was so dark the whole way, and I was like, oh no, you got to give me something. You got to make me feel like it's gonna be all right.
All right, right,
Yeah, but
right.
your special, I can't open up my laptop without hearing about another special that you're going to be doing. I think you're up to. I think Netflix has announced 10 new specials by the year.
Yeah, I'm hoping to keep it going. Yeah, they're very lucky that they wanted to work with me. And I'm glad the first one was well received enough, and yeah, looking to do I think two more specials, hopefully more, but
Yeah.
two more with Netflix, and one is like a docu series,
Oh, cool.
like
Cool.
a one-off special. Yeah, so I got lucky
Nice.
with. I'm lucky they believe in me.
Yeah. Oh, it's well deserved. That special was so good, so
I
tight.
appreciate it.
And I felt to me, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but just being your friend from the outside, it seemed like it was almost like in two waves. Like, it seemed like it came out and was really popular, but it seemed like it kicked into another gear at a certain point. Was that right?
You mean in pop culture, like
Yeah,
in the
just the
zeitgeist?
culture.
Or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, maybe, but my play with stand up has and tell me if you agree with this definition. It's always kind of old school, like by my standards, old school. Like I wanted to make something timeless that had like
Hmm.
a long tail, because all the specials I liked, I discovered them maybe at quick as like 5 years after they were made. The
Right.
soonest when I discovered all my comedy heroes. It's like sometimes in some cases decades after they made them, and they were still like there was this element about them that was very timeless and classic,
Yeah.
even though they were often discussing contemporary issues. So that was kind of my goal,
Right.
and I trusted the Netflix algorithm to perpetuate it, hopefully. And so meaning I wasn't too worried about the initial launch, that boost, but I
Hmm.
was hoping that word of mouth would spread it. So I'm glad you feel that way. It's very hard for me to judge that whether or not it's getting a second life, but
Right. Right.
I certainly intended for that to be the case. I think
Yeah.
that's what separates like us from, like, no offense, like social media only comedians who are just
Right.
focused on social media, where everything's very now and quick, and 10 seconds, 1 minute, and then
Yeah.
whereas I feel like great comedy is kind of like jazz, and it kind of stands the test of time, and it lasts a bit longer, and
Yeah.
it
I've
takes longer
always.
to make, and we go
Yeah.
crazy making it. And
it takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of thought because you're not just going for a reaction. You're actually thinking about this thing. As I remember, Lily Tomlin had talked about that way before I was a comedian. I read that she liked to do things that would last for 30 years. That's why she stayed away from, cultural pop political moments that would be dated, within 6 months. But you do a good
Yeah.
job because you have a cultural bent on things and a political mind, which you're so good on the Daily Show with also. And to combine that sentiment with stuff that is more evergreen, that's well crafted.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. I feel like I have the benefit of also no one, no one's kind of chewed through this material from a Chinese point of view in America. So I kind of, in some ways, I almost feel like I got free reign, to kind of discuss stuff. So I don't have to worry about anyone else having put it through the same lens, because there is no, no one, and I mean, we shouldn't think that way anyway, because all our lenses are different regardless of race. But
No, but
in my case,
I was very tempted when I started to take it through a Chinese lens.
well, you should have, yeah, you should have ran with it. Maybe
I just ran out so quickly. The only Chinese I knew was Chinatown in New York coming in from New Jersey.
And I don't even, man, it's funny you mentioned Lily Tomlin, because I was walking around New York City before the pandemic, and I remember I always frequent the vinyl record, the guys who sell vinyls on the street, and
Yeah.
I'm the guy who, like, I want to like vinyl more than I actually do. Like, I don't have a record player. I can't stand the thought of like trying to store all this stuff, especially in a New York apartment.
Yeah.
But it just feels like something I want to be that guy who likes it. And so I always flip through the comedy section of the
Right.
vinyls just to see,
Yeah.
what's going on. And man, I found a Lily Tomlin record and I actually bought it. And I
Oh,
was thinking,
nice.
how crazy is it that Lily Tomlin has been around long enough to have a vinyl of her doing comedy bits? And
Oh, man.
and I went to go listen to it. I actually, ironically, this is the world we live in, right? I bought the vinyl and I listened to it on Apple Music digitally because I don't have a vinyl player. Yeah, and just like seeing it and her style and stuff still holds up, and it's
Oh,
still, yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it'll be, I don't know if it's trippy or insulting to, like, it'll be so crazy to get her to sign the vinyl. Like, how long
Oh,
have you been around that it's vinyl?
100%. Because
Man.
people don't really know that. This younger generation doesn't really know that about her. But my mother was listening to those albums when I was a kid, and they would just put it on, and all these adults just sitting around the living room, just crying, laughing, imitating
Yeah.
her doing the operator and stuff. And
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
really,
And ahead of
really
its
good
time,
stuff.
ahead of its time. It's ahead of its time now, but at the time, it must have been even more ahead of its time. She's a woman by herself on
Yeah.
stage. She has the floor. Then you look at the back of the vinyl sleeve, and it says, recorded at Ice House,
Oh,
LA, which
really?
is still going on. Yeah, it's crazy that like that. I actually, I'm not sure if Ice House is going like today, but as
Right.
recently as before the pandemic, it was still going strong. Jeff
Yeah.
Stilson would tell me to go, and Ice House is the best room in LA right now. It's still
Yeah.
going, and it's so weird. You're in these rooms in America, and they have these connection to these vinyl records of comedy heroes. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's honestly why I moved to America to do comedy. It's like to just get that connection to people,
Yeah, that's what I
the
wanted to
heroes.
ask. What was
Yeah.
well, how old were you when you came over?
I was 30.
You were
I
30.
was
So
yeah. I came out 2015. Yeah.
wow. So how were you exposed to comedy when were you in China or Malaysia?
I was in Malaysia, I was in Singapore, and then I started doing stand-up comedy in Australia.
So when did you
So,
first get turned on to comedy?
I think it was, so what happened was my parents went to Manchester, New Hampshire, in the late 80s, and
Mhm.
they went to college very late in life. So they had two kids in Malaysia, and then they went to college in America. So I
Okay.
actually went with them. I joined them after about a year when they were in America. I joined them. I was about 3 years old, and the reason I don't start that story is because we actually went back to Malaysia after they finished university. We didn't stay. we went back to Malaysia. But
Right.
when
Okay.
I was in America in the late 80s, early 90s, man, they were watching they were watching the you, what was on TV at the time. Seinfeld
Right.
was on, and you would see him come on and do bits at the end of the show, and it was like, what is this? What's he doing? He's just standing there doing bits at the end, and I remember telling my mom, like, hey, I want to try that sometime, and my mom was like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, that's good, and then I didn't do anything about it for literally 20 years. Yeah, and
Wow.
then I started doing stand up in Australia. Yeah, but that was the first time I ever saw someone on stage just making jokes and making people laugh, and it was very, I didn't know at the time, but it was very acoustic, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was no special effects. It was just him and this microphone, and he's in this dark room, and
Right.
he's a guy on TV, but yet he's in this small dark room trying to make people laugh, and there's something
Right.
like, oh, there's something here that seems pretty special, But
And did
anyway,
you feel before you watched it that you were funny? Did you feel like you had funny in you? And
I
then
don't think so.
no?
Yeah, I don't think so.
And was there anything in Malaysia that spoke close to comedy?
Um, no, we have our own, Singapore and Malaysia had its own comedy, but it's a very different style. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's uh almost pantomime, almost like
Uh-huh.
sketch based, right?
Right.
That definitely not truth to power, not
Right.
you know unfiltered describing reality like that. That
Yeah.
style really wasn't a thing in Singapore and Malaysia, and so no, we didn't really have it. Yeah, but again, in Singapore, when I was growing up in Singapore, you would watch Just for Laughs. They would air it on TV, and you see all these
Ah.
comics on Just for Laughs, and then you'd be like, man, there's something here as well. These guys are just standing on stage and making jokes, and they weren't necessarily edgy, right? They were just
Right.
guys making jokes and stuff like that. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Right.
There's
Right.
something there, and also it seems naively so accessible because it's just a guy in a microphone, and you don't need
Yeah.
to plan out anything else. You just
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of how I was getting the bug from that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, can you please
Yeah.
describe Malaysia for me? Because I have
Oh,
I've never traveled to Asia. I have this vague I in my brain, you know how you always see the maps or you see the globe, and I know it's over this side of the globe, and I always see it like
yeah, yeah,
Philippines, like there's like big China,
yeah,
and then all these little broken islands,
yeah,
and uh and I know I should go to Japan, I should go to Thailand, but to me it's all one. It really is because I've
yeah, yeah,
never
yeah.
been able to
I
see it.
you're actually describing it the way I always describe Americans describing Southeast Asia. So I'm glad I'm actually spot on with that, because for
Yeah,
me, I
completely.
I feel like I feel like Southeast Asia is such a black hole for
Hmm.
Americans because there's no context. The fact that there's multiple countries there is
Yeah.
already, crazy to most Americans. And I mean, I make this point in my special that, like, I don't blame America for not knowing it because it's on the other side of the planet. So why would you know that area? But um, yeah, so yeah, there's a bunch of different countries there, and in Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Laos, um, uh, they're all Vietnam,
Yep.
and we're all kind of in close proximity. And Malaysia, honestly, it's kind of like uh, if Hawaii was um, not as well run as Hawaii. If things were a little bit shabbier than Hawaii, that's
Right.
what Malaysia's like in terms of, oh, and it's hotter, it's humid like Florida,
Uh-huh.
but the vegetation is like Hawaii. In fact, Hawaii is so much like Singapore and Malaysia. Some parts that if you take a photo of Hawaii, like Oahu, it looks like Singapore. Like you couldn't even tell the
Oh,
difference.
really?
So, but you would love it, man. You should go. You
Oh,
love
I
it. There's
totally
gigs
would
there
love it.
now.
I
You,
would love it.
you
I really, and you
yeah,
know what? It's very similar to when I grew up thinking about the Middle East. And I'd never been to the Middle East, and I just
yeah,
had this vague paint portrait in my head. And once I traveled there and went to Dubai and Beirut, it just became one of my favorite destinations. It was like there was
right,
so much to it. Now it had context, and I feel like that's the thing
yeah.
with Asia. But do I start with Malaysia? Is the question.
No, don't start with Malaysia. Start with Singapore.
Sorry, Singapore.
Singapore is like the gateway drug. Yeah, it's easier. It'll ease your way into it. Everyone that speaks English, it's safe, and then I think when you're done with Singapore, then you go to the wild side,
Right.
which is Malaysia. Yeah,
Once-
Singapore.
once
You're like
I'm-
Singapore.
Once I'm on
Yeah.
solid ground and I'm not scared anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, once you're not scared anymore, and you go. But man, they have gigs there, and the gigs are pretty good, you know. And I always love how the U.S. comics go there now, and they're always worried, like, are they gonna get it? Do they have Catholics here? Are there traffic lights? And it's like, yeah, they have Catholics, they have traffic lights, they have, you know, everything.
Yeah.
They have iPhones, like and like I guess this is the question you were getting at earlier, which was like, how do you get American pop culture in Asia? And we get it, man. It's one of the biggest exports in America is American pop culture. So we get all that stuff. We see it all the time, and it's, you know, we get it. Yeah, we're down.
Right.
You should go just for I keep telling you to go as though you don't want to, but you should go. Yeah.
No, I do want to. I do want to. I really do. But I feel like maybe I should go with you, because that would be a lot more
I'll hook
fun,
you up.
I think. Yeah.
I'll
So
hook you up for sure.
tell me when you're growing up in Malaysia, was your mom or dad, were they good cooks?
Wow, it's interesting you go for that. I didn't know. I thought my mom was a great cook until I moved for university, and I was like, oh, until I left the house, and then I was like, oh, this what I've been doing. So, sorry, mom, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. But you know, it's a high standard of food in Malaysia. Honestly, like the best part of Malaysia and Singapore is the food. You know, so it's such a melting pot of cultures. I know everyone always says that about everywhere, you know, but it genuinely, the cuisine in Malaysia is like Chinese people mixed with Malay people mixed with Indian people, and the flavor can't be replicated. And every day, you know, I've been lucky to film some stuff in Malaysia with Americans, and it's like, guys, stop eating at Wendy's. Like, you're wasting your fucking calories. You know, go eat this. You can't get this stuff anywhere else. It's not even that exotic. It's like, you know, chicken with noodles, but it's like the best version of that, you know. So
that's what I was gonna ask. I was thinking about that. Like, because sometimes, you know, you're part of a culture and you just eat it at home all the time, and then once you leave the house, you kind of just start eating whatever's out there, and you're like, oh, I'll get to Italian food again, but look at everything that's out here. But it sounds like you really appreciated it even after you left.
I appreciate even more.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite Malaysian dish?
Oh man, I'm gonna say words, but it won't mean anything to anyone. But go for it. Yeah, char kway teow is killer. You can't get that flavor anywhere else. That's like wok fried noodles. The wonton mee in Malaysia is killer. I mean, something based chicken rice is killer. I really like the Malay desserts. Kueh, we call it like kueh. Dude, it doesn't.
What's kueh?
It's like this like steamed cake. It's man, I guess it's like Jello, but not really. It's like pudding. It's closer to pudding. Yeah.
Right.
But no, there's no context for describing this to Americans, because you can't even get them to eat, like, you know, they go to Chinese restaurants and they order cashew chicken. Like, we're still at like 1 + 1 = 2 level of Chinese food. Like, we can't talk about advanced calculus here, you know. Like, it's just too hard. Like the best food, there's no English name for it. So I can't even begin.
That's how I always feel whenever I roll into an Asian place, if it's Thai food or whatever, and I'm like, I want to so badly. It's like looking at a wine list. It's looking at a wine list and not knowing wine. You're like, I know there's gold in here, but I have I someone get over here and help me.
You actually make a good point, and that's actually maybe a good idea, is having a Asian friend introduce food to you. Could be a content podcast idea, because I brought you know, Roy Wood Jr. Salt of the earth, Roy Wood Jr., down to earth guy, super open-minded, you know, comes from Alabama but has traveled the world. And I brought him one day. I just said, Roy, I remember we were sitting in the Daily Show office, and he actually out loud, out of nowhere, he just goes, You know what, man? I'm done with food. I've tried every single food. Nothing impressed me. I've had it all. And then I was like, what? Have you tried anything from Southeast Asia? Like not even a country, just the region of Southeast Asia. And then he
Yeah.
just like was like, okay, no. And I was like, okay, you gotta come. You gotta come like tomorrow. We're going. And so I brought him to like a Vietnamese restaurant in New York. It's called Hanoi House. You'll love it. It's
Uh-huh.
very modern take on Vietnamese food. And we ate,
Yeah.
rice paper rolls from Vietnam where they
Mm-hmm.
they wrap like lettuce and meat and into a rice paper thing. And he ate it and
Right.
he was like, and very unusual flavors for this black guy from Alabama. And he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, it's good. And the next day I asked him just give it to me straight. Did you like it? And he's like, yeah, I did like it. And what was crazy was that after eating the food, I didn't feel sick. And I was like, yeah, you're not
Right.
supposed to feel sick after you eat. This guy's been feeling sick after every meal for almost 40 years now. Can you imagine eating every meal and thinking it's normal to
Yes.
feel like crap?
Yes. And that's my
Yeah,
problem.
it's light.
That's my problem with American style Chinese food. I
Yeah,
eat
yeah, yeah.
American style Chinese food, and fried whatever, and then there's so much sodium, and the next day I'm all puffy, and I don't I don't
Yeah,
feel right, and
yeah.
I know I ordered the wrong thing. I love the
Well,
idea.
this is
It's almost like
yeah,
an Asian food sommelier. Like you
yeah,
like you come up and guide them through the wine list. You guide them through the menu.
100%. I think we need that. I think that will bridge a lot of cultures for real.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's an open secret that the Chinese restaurants they've got two menus, one for the less adventurous Americans, and then one for the people who know what the hell they're doing. And it's not racial. It's they have two menus because they know that the Americans, hardcore Americans,
Yeah,
want a certain thing, and so they're not doing it on purpose. They're just like,
right.
oh, we have to give the people what they want, but then when people who walk in who know what it's supposed to taste like, we got this too. So they got two menus, man. And I'm just saying there's stuff on the other menu that is probably better, and it's not crazy. It's just
Yeah.
meat and carbs, but just done in a different way.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Oh, it's so
yeah.
funny.
Sometimes you bring friends out and they get so scared, and it's like, yo, it's literally chicken and rice. It's chicken and rice. That's all it. It's
Right.
just cooked in a different way. Yeah,
Yeah, it's so
but
funny
yeah,
though. I mean, that's what's that's what's exciting about you in comedy right now. Actually, is that it is like you were saying before. It was like it wasn't going through this. No one had gone through this lens before, and it's like they're just people are so hungry to see things through other people's eyes. They really want. I think they do crave understanding and knowing and
sure.
finding the good stuff. And your
Yeah, yeah.
stand up is kind of like this great way to kind of bridge those two cultures.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah, that's the only way I know how to do it. So I couldn't. I'm glad that people like it.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you
Mhm.
like because one of my favorite uh things to watch to get me hyped up on doing stand-up comedy is Jerry Seinfeld's Comedian documentary, which you make a small appearance in.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, as someone who was in it and was there before it was made and there after it's made. I'm not saying it's some kind of pop culture changing moment, but I'm just asking like if you could tell me some context as to when that thing was being filmed, like what was New York comedy scene like at that time? Was
Yeah.
it booming or was it?
It was starting to boom. It was booming in a way. Like it wasn't there wasn't the Netflix of it all. There wasn't that the YouTube of it was just kind of like starting. It was still you had to go out and see it live and you had to get limited specials on things. So but the scene was very creative. There was an alternative scene going, there were the club scene going, and that's like when I started. And having him come around, I had just gotten into the cellar. The personal point of view of it was I started becoming friendly with him and following him around and trying to just soak up everything I could to learn from him. And he took a liking to me, and I was just like, I wasn't going to let go. I was like, all right, I'm sticking around. So when they started doing the documentary, uh, you know, they were looking for a young guy to follow, and while they were following him around, and I'm like, well, they're probably going to put me in the movie, right? Because I do sit at the table with him every day. I do run around with him all the time. And then they went with Orny Adams, and they started following Orny. And at first I was like, oh, I thought I was going to be the guy. And then when the movie came out, you realize, oh, they needed the. I was like, whoo.
Right. You dodged it. Yeah. That's so
But
crazy. I mean, I say this, but
Go
no,
ahead.
please.
It was
I
culturally, like you say, it wasn't culturally this huge moment, but it was a huge moment for comedians of every age, of people that were established, people that just loved it, kids who hadn't even started it yet but were thinking about it. That movie holds a special place in comedians' minds for sure.
Yeah, and I don't say that lightly. We always put, because we're in it, we tend to put things on pedestals a bit. But honestly, that documentary kind of like it's such an authentic view into what's going on. More so than most things, and the fact that it's Jerry Seinfeld, who's at this point at the peak, and he's doing it, and honestly, without exaggeration, like I'll watch that once a year. And I'll get something new out of it every time, like just personally. I'll pick out something new, like something he says that just resonates with where I am at in life and it took me a while to really understand what he's saying. And it's funny, like he's going into clubs and everyone's like, and then he's like, yo, they give me like 3 minutes, and then it doesn't even matter who you are. And then he'll have like a bad gig. He'll go to this other place and have a bad gig. I'm like, oh that's
and it was
that's what it is.
And it really was what he was going through was, and he always would talk about how he loves stand-up so much, but he also knows how hard it is to do it well. And that's why people who have success like he had in television or film, comedians, they very rarely come back to stand-up because you can't just show up. You've got to put in all of these hours again. You have to be humble and go through all that growing again. And he wanted to do it so badly, but he knew it was going to be painful. And I think that's so inspiring because you so many times feel like this is everybody think it's this hard?
Yeah, and you watch that documentary and you really get that. You get that, like even Jerry Seinfeld, literally, he's like, this is how big do you have to be? At one point, he's like, how big do you have to be to get these people to listen to you? And I think that's it. I mean, one thing I realized after I got the Daily Show job was like, man, stand-up is the easiest thing to not do. If you got any other thing going for you, stand-up is the easiest thing to not do, and it makes no sense financially. The return on investment is so low. The danger, the plus the travel, the mental. So it's like you gotta love it. You have to love it, otherwise you can't. Yeah.
But the thing you really see over the long haul is that if you don't let it go, you always have it. And TV shows come and go, movies come and go, and eventually, when you're in that part of the business, it's very splashy and it's very exciting, but you need other people to come get you and let you do it. And stand up, if you maintain it, when all of it kind of goes away and it's like somebody else is the guy now getting all that stuff, you can still show up on stage and kill. That's the ultimate win.
Yeah. You're master of your own destiny to many extents. Yeah, for sure. And I definitely see that now. It's like exactly what you just said. Like when you can make your own material and go on stage, you almost are like, you're not desperate for every other thing that happens because you kind of have control over your own self-expression, which gives you so much power, and you can pick your spots. You're not, hopefully you're not too desperate for other stuff,
right.
Whatever. Yeah. Exactly. So that lack of desperation is the biggest thing from stand-up, I think.
Oh, the best. Absolutely.
And the other thing, I think I asked you this before, but I mean, maybe just for the purpose of this podcast, like, do you feel like this, does this moment in New York where everything's kind of shut down, comedy wise, do you have any parallel to a previous moment in history? I guess it's unprecedented, but
No.
no, this is okay. This
No,
doesn't compare
because
to 80s. Is this like what 1980s was like in New York City?
yeah, no, I mean, no, for me, I started in 93 and the only big impact really was 9/11 and we were performing 3 days after it.
Jesus.
You know what I mean? So like this is the weirdest because this is the only time that stand up has been knocked off the map. It's like
Right.
it's never depression, recessions, national tragedies. As comedians, you're like, well, we can still do it. We can still go. And no one's ever taken us out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. It took.
Yeah.
I remember I was a year ago. I was running around New York City, going from gig to gig. You know, different comedy clubs, rushing around, jumping on stage, doing 10 minutes, loving
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
I distinctly remember, like, man, this is living the dream. I'm in New York City. I'm doing multiple gigs a night. I feel like I'm getting better. This is the best. Like this, surely this can't end. Like, and then
Yeah.
you go like, yeah, you know, it's good. Like this is too good to be true. And then you
Yeah.
tell that voice to shut up, like Tony
Yeah.
Robbins. You're like, no, you're just being negative. Why would this end? And then it ended.
I know.
I was like, what? How did this end? It was
I
the
know,
most.
and the funny thing is, we all think it's our fault.
Yeah.
We all think it's because we were
because
thinking those thoughts.
Yeah, I loved it too much. That's why it
Yeah.
ended. I loved it too
Yeah.
much. I was having too good a time. If I enjoyed myself less, maybe
Right.
karma wouldn't have.
I
Yeah, I
know.
deserve this.
I was talking to Kathleen Madigan, and she's like, "I will never complain about going on the road again."
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
Oh
Well,
man.
I've been reminded of it because we were going to do this podcast, but the first time that we hung out was at the Soho Cigar Bar.
Oh yeah.
Remember, like
Yeah.
after shows, and we got to go down with our buddy Max, and I literally have that in my head. Like that's such a good It's a good after the comedy night moment to just sit there in that beautiful little room with the cigar and just like get to know people and stuff. And I have that in my head as one of the markers of normality. Like if we're
Yeah.
back there,
Yeah.
we'll
We
know
can't
we're
wait to
back.
get back there. No, you're right. And that's right. That's part of the living the dream I was saying. You run around New York City and then you end up in Soho Cigar Bar with Tom Papa, and you're like, yeah, I can't remember. I think someone else, Max was there, and sometimes I go there with other people, Paul Verzi or Bill Burr or whoever, and like, man, it's crazy. Like we're in
Yeah.
New York City, it's literally
Yeah.
living the dream. And
It's
it
a
ended.
nice little it's a nice finish line for us as long as they stay open.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when are you coming
Yeah.
back to the mainland? You're in Hawaii now
Um,
working on something.
yeah. I'm filming something till May. Right now, it's
Okay.
just the start of March. I've been here for a few months now. Again, very lucky to be here. To be quite honest, yeah, I mean, this place is. I cannot believe this is still America. We're in the middle
I
of
love
the
it there.
Pacific, and yeah, like America is so big. It's so
Yeah.
huge. As a country that we're here and we're still in America.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I'm coming back in. Gonna try to go back to New York after May, and
Okay.
we'll see. Hey, good vaccine news. The last couple of weeks, every week has better and better news for the vaccine.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty confident
Yeah.
we'll be back swinging. I
I
think,
think so too.
and I was in New York in the summertime 2020. So let's say end of August
Mhm.
2020, and man, it was popping. It was
Yeah.
people are coming out for stand-up shows. We were doing it on rooftops. We were doing
Yeah.
it in Central Park. We were doing it in the dumbest places. But people were so happy to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are desperate for it. I can tell people are desperate to come back out.
Oh,
I actually feel
absolutely.
like maybe Netflix will suffer after this because no one wants to stay at home and watch Netflix anymore. Because
I know.
yeah, you know
That's
what I
okay.
mean.
Yeah, they'll come out and while we're rehearsing and getting ready for the next one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so before we go, what are you eating over there in Hawaii? Is the food decent?
Yeah. Volcanic minerals produce great produce, and that's the other thing about New York. You're like a New York guy, right? Born
Yeah.
and raised Jersey, New York.
Yeah.
Yo, I gotta tell you, the produce in New York is terrible,
It really
and you
is.
only know that if you come from somewhere else.
I know.
If you live in New York, you're like, this tastes fresh, and
Yeah.
if you're from NY, it's like, this is not what food's supposed to taste like.
I
And
remember the
so
first time I went to the Caribbean and had a papaya. I was like, "What?" This is
Why
totally
isn't this?
different.
It's not supposed to be watery and tasteless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even California, has better produce than New
Oh,
York.
yeah.
So yeah, out here in Hawaii, very Asian influenced.
Yeah.
Uh, Chinese culture, Japanese culture, and not to mention native Hawaiian culture. It's very familiar. All the foods here are very familiar.
Oh,
Got
that's
the
good.
yum cha, dim sum, yum cha. Yeah, Tom, I gotta take you out for
Yeah,
legit food in New
absolutely.
York.
That's going to be my new
Yeah,
thing. I've got Europe
yeah,
down. I've been to the Middle East. I've got the US down. It's like it's
yeah.
time. It's really
Southeast
time.
Asia. It's
Yeah.
time, man. It's time. Southeast Asia. I'll make sure you don't I'll make sure you don't go to the wrong places.
All right. You're the best. Great to see you again, really sincerely, and I can't wait till you get back and we can go have another cigar. It'll be good time.
Yeah. Thanks for reaching out, Tom. I appreciate
All right,
it.
buddy.
Good to see you.
Good luck.
Take care.
All right.
Take
see
care.
ya.
Bye.
That was the great Ronny Chieng. Check out his special on Netflix. He's amazeballs. And of course, The Daily Show and all things Ronny. Okay, now it's time for a quick bite. Let's get on the phone and call New York City long distance and grab a quick bite with Matteo Lane. Oh man, this is going to be good. This will be the answers to my carbonara troubles.
Matteo,
Yes.
buongiorno.
Buongiorno, come stai?
Bene. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Bravo. Anch'io sto bene.
So yesterday, I, as you know, because I started texting you frantically as I was in the throes of it, I was, well, let me back up a day before that. I was in a deli, and they had guanciale.
Mm-hmm.
I was very excited because they don't have that everywhere. So I got the guanciale and I ran back home and decided it's time to try again with carbonara, which is your favorite of all favorites.
It is.
And you also know how to make it very well.
Yes.
And I am getting better, but I'm struggling. And I think let me throw. Okay, so you told me pare down. Don't you dare use anything other than pecorino cheese.
Pecorino
eggs,
Romano. Yes.
right? Eggs,
Yep.
pasta.
Yes. Dry pasta, bucatini, or spaghetti, or rigatoni. That's your only option.
Yes, I went with bucatini, the
Good.
thicker spaghetti, and then salt and pepper. A little
Yes.
pasta water.
And then guanciale. That's perfect.
And the guanciale, of course. And I think because my cheese was shredded and not grated, I might have had an early misstep.
Well, I think what it looked to me in the picture was that it wasn't the cheese, it was the egg, because on the guanciale, I viewed it with Liz. We watched it like it was sort of like a National Geographic photo, like we were zooming up on it and inspecting what the problem was. And only Italians would do this, but we were looking at it. I think the problem was the egg. So when you were cooking the eggs, either you didn't temperate the eggs with the hot pasta water, or you cooked it in the pan and the pan was still too hot, and it caused them to scramble. That was
right.
That was it. Because the cheese will melt, whether you shred it, whether however you grate, it's gonna melt.
True.
So I think it was the egg. It looked like something went wrong with the egg, and it was scrambled.
So when you have the guanciale and you make it in the pan and you fried it all up, do you drain the oil and take it out and then add it back in later, or do you just throw the pasta into it once it's cooled down?
There's a few different methods to it. The way that I do it, that I learned from Castbox Gang, everyone can look them up on Instagram, is when I cook the guanciale first, and then when the guanciale is done cooking, I take it and put it like on a paper towel, so so that it's not super oily. Then I take the oil from the pan and I pour some of it into my pecorino and pepper mixture, and then then I'm done with the pan. Then what I
Done with the pan.
Done with the pan. Then what I do is I take once that pasta water is really boiling and you're about like a minute before you're taking your pasta out, I take like a spoonful of the pasta water, bring it into my egg cheese mixture, and then mix it in so that way, one, the heat starts to cook the eggs, but it makes it creamy so that when I bring the pasta in, it won't scramble it, and two, it helps bring that starchy pasta water into the egg mixture so that that mixture will start to adhere and stick to the pasta. So then I take my pasta out, and I strain the pasta while saving a cup of the pasta water, bring the pasta right into the egg mixture and start mixing with a spatula. And then depending on how thick it is, you can add some more pasta water into it or not. But usually that's the step that I take. And then I have my guanciale and bring the guanciale into the pasta.
Oh, this is a much cooler, and I don't mean cool like the Fonz approach. because I was always using the pan, and it was always a little bit of a complication of is it cooled off enough? I would take it off and put it on the side. So if you're getting the pan out of there completely, then now that's enough to cook the egg. That's hot enough.
Oh yeah, that's plenty fine. Plus, you've already cooked some of the egg by bringing that pasta water into it earlier.
And just a tablespoon.
Right. So another thing too, you can do it I've done it plenty of times on the pan. You can do it on the pan. And actually, if you went to like una trattoria or something like that in Rome, usually they'll do it on a pan. But they've got such a method to the way that they do it. They're like machines over there that if you really want to break it down and make it easier, you really can just bring it into a bowl. That's all you have to do.
Right. Wow. Now the Carbo Gang, which is that Instagram account, which you've gotten me hooked on it too.
And obsessed with them.
Obsessed. And they'll sometimes be showing you slow motion of stirring the egg pecorino mixture, and it looks thick. It looks like a custard almost before the pasta gets in your egg.
Yeah, it is pretty thick. I mean, they use a lot of egg yolks. You have to remember when they're making these videos, usually they're adding extra egg yolks to give it sort of that look. So, I mean, if you wanted to, like, let's say you're making pasta for one person, usually I'd recommend 2 egg yolks. I mean, you don't need anything more than that. If you really want to get, like, that creamy, yellowy, glowy look, you can add an extra egg yolk. You just might have to add a little extra pasta water when you're mixing because it can be too thick sometimes. So you really want, like, the right consistency.
Got it. Yeah, you're right. They definitely – when I was doing it for just myself yesterday, I used 2 egg yolks and 1 full egg.
Never.
Never the full egg.
Never the full egg. And there's a big argument about this in Rome, like a big argument about this in Rome, like who uses full egg, who doesn't use full egg. I find by the people that I've spoken to, lived with, cooked with, and eaten with in Rome, where this dish is from, that the places that I prefer do not use the full egg. Most of the traditional recipes, and I'm sure there's some Dago out there listening to this screaming at their computer, but they do not use a full egg. Just the egg yolk.
As my grandmother would say, she'd spit on the ground.
Yeah, I'm spitting on the ground right now for you, grandmother. Never the full egg. The full egg, I mean, you can do it. The problem is the consistency is not going to be the same. Like, I want full control of the consistency and how creamy I want the pasta sauce to be. So if I use an egg yolk, it really, you risk making more of a scrambled egg with that. If you want that custardy look, then get rid of the egg whites because that's what a custard is. It's just egg yolk.
Right. Okay, final question. I'll let you go.
Sure. Honestly, if you said I need to talk to you for 23 hours straight about pasta, I would literally make a pot of coffee and be like, let's go.
Well, this is, do not for one second think this is our last conversation. You're in your apartment. You're making it for one. You You're using 2 egg yolks. How much pasta do you use for just Matteo?
Like a fourth of a box of a pound of pasta.
Yeah, right. That's what I was figuring. I used about a half a box yesterday, and
that's a lot of pasta.
I passed out on the couch a half hour later.
I remember once I made a lot of pasta. I was like on Instagram making a lot of pasta, and a family friend of ours who I've known since he was like 2, his name is Nino. They live in Sicily. Literally messages me while I'm making it saying, "Matteo, it is too much pasta." That's the American in us that wants to use just a shit ton of pasta and have a Lady in the Tramp moment by ourselves, and sort of like this Stregonona mountain of pasta theme. But the Italians, like, they spit on that. They're like, "What are you doing? Like, that's enough already." Like, it would be the equivalent of going to a restaurant and instead of having a turkey breast, being like, "I'll have the whole turkey." They're like, "What?"
Right. Yeah. There's also that. I also it's how you're raised too. Like the idea that you would not have enough food for people was just like the worst violation you could possibly put out into the world. So I always, but it was way too much because there's nothing sadder than not being able to eat it and then throwing stuff away. That's even worse.
Well, it's a battle. It's like, is it sad that I ate all this pasta by myself and now I'm just going to sit in my own shame, or I threw it out and made myself feel slightly better on the couch, so I'm still going to pass out.
Right. All right. Well, I have a little guanciale left, as I told you, and I'm going to get on it probably in a couple days. So I'm going to FaceTime you during this escapade.
Please let me know when you do it, and then if you want, I can do it with Liz. We can sort of whop out at you.
That'd be great.
Scream at you.
That'd be great. All right, you're the best. Thank you, Matteo.
Right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Buongiorno.
Arrivederci. Ciao.
All right, that's it, everybody. Hope you had a good time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. Again, March 27th. You can get tickets at rushtix.com or tompapa.com, wherever. Go through the social medias. You know how to do it. You're grown up. But a big show on March 27th. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to Matteo Lane and Ronny Chieng. And we'll see you next time.